Have you ever been in the chunnel? What's your opinion of flexitarians? Would mansplaining annoy you if you're a woman? You'll learn some useful Portmanteau vocabulary in this episode of
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello, and if you are a new listener, you're very welcome. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with many, many years of teaching English, Reza and I are going to help you grow your grammar, vocalize your vocabulary, and perfect your pronunciation and portmanteau words. How are you doing, Reza?
I'm fine. I'm enjoying this fine sunny day. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's good to be back podcasting again this week. I'm very excited about today's topic of portmanteau words. But first, we have a message from Pau from Spain.
Hello, Pauls. I'm Pau from Spain. I just started to listen to your podcast a few weeks ago. And the topic of my voice message is because I'm really upset with myself and really mad. I lived in England for 2 years. It was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And then when I came back to Spain, I did not continue using my English. I don't know why. It's just because I focus my life in a different way. But the last month, my boss tried to give me just a big promotion if I could help him with English issues. And I thought, okay, I can do it. It's going to be easy. But oh my gosh, it wasn't. I don't know why I couldn't do it. My English right now is rubbish, or is much rubbish than it was 6 years ago. I know I didn't speak in English in a long time, but I lost it. So that's it. I can't believe it, but it's happened. I lost it. I don't use it and I lost it. So what do you think about it? And thanks for listening to me, and thanks for your gorgeous podcast. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your message, Pau. And I don't think that your English is rubbish. I think it's very good. Maybe you've dropped a little in level, perhaps. We didn't know your level before, but your English is far from rubbish. What did you think, Reza?
I think exactly the same as you, that you've still got a very good level of English, and we understood everything you said, so you can't ask much more than that.
You also have some very nice natural colloquial expressions. You said, oh my gosh, which is an expression of surprise that you don't hear very often from a student of English. Oh my gosh. That was very nice. There were one or two things in your message that we could improve on, though, Paul. You said right at the beginning postcard, which is tarjeta postal. What you should have said was podcast. Those two words are very similar. So postcard is tarjeta postal and podcast is what you're listening to. Did you hear any other things that Paul could improve on?
I thought generally your pronunciation was good, except right at the very beginning, I think you wanted to say hi, pals. But it sounded to me like Paul's, the vowel sound wasn't quite right. But I think you wanted to say hi, pals, P-A-L-S. A pal is like a friend. So your pronunciation of the vowel sound wasn't quite right. Pals, hi, pals.
There was also a comparative that wasn't quite right, Paul. You said, my English is much rubbish than it was years ago. Better to say much worse.
Although you could say much more rubbish.
Yeah.
You could say that. It's very colloquial, isn't it? But you could do it.
And one final thing, right at the end you said, thanks for listen to me. Remember those gerunds after preposition. So thanks for listening to me.
And I noticed one other little grammar thing. I think you said, I didn't speak English in a long time. But I think you're talking about from the past, from your return to Spain up until now. So you should use the present perfect and say, I haven't spoken English in a long time. Haven't spoken present perfect because from the past up to now.
So it sounds like you really need to get back into English, pal. You need to get stuck into English to help your boss with the staff or with English issues in your company. If you don't use it, you lose it. So consistency is the key. So get back into practicing. Maybe for a few weeks or a couple of months, pay for an online teacher to help you get back into using English on a regular basis and just get back into that English mode. Watch films and TV series in English. Just expose yourself more to English and do a little bit of studying as well. And you'll see that very quickly it'll come back to you.
Okay, so let's dive straight into the main topic for today, which is portmanteau words. You're probably immediately thinking, what? Portmanteau, yeah, it's not a common word in itself. We'll spell it for you. Portmanteau. Portmanteau. The word itself originally referred to a type of kind of suitcase. It was a suitcase which opened up into two equal parts. So the left side and the right side were identical. And in a minute, you'll see why it's been applied to English language. So portmanteau words are words where there's two parts that have combined into one.
And many of these words are in common use today, and you are listening to one because actually the word podcast comes from Apple iPod originally, combined with broadcast. So iPod and broadcast, put those two words together and you get the word podcast, which is now a common word in English.
Another IT word, which is a portmanteau word, two words mixed to make one, is blog. In fact, originally, many years ago, people used to use the long version, which is a web log. Web, the World Wide Web, of course, internet. And a log, L-O-G, is when you record something. It's kind of like a formal diary, let's say. For example, on a plane or on a ship, they always have a log, the captain's log. They're obliged to write down every little thing that happens so it can be recorded should there be an accident or something like that. A log, a recording of events. So a web log is like recording things online, but it got reduced finally to blog, B-L-O-G.
And if you want to visit our blog and see a list of all these words we're speaking about at the moment, go to inglespodcast.com/333.
Another word, which is a portmanteau word using the word web, is webinar. Webinar, so web, World Wide Web again. Inar comes from seminar. So stick web and seminar together and you get webinar, which of course is an online seminar.
A very common word these days when we speak about the internet is Wi-Fi, W-I-F-I, which is a combination of wireless and fidelity. Wireless fidelity, Wi-Fi. Be careful of the pronunciation. It's not pronounced in the same way as Spanish. You say Wi-Fi and we say Wi-Fi, a Wi-Fi connection.
Craig, are you familiar with the word hi-fi, or is that a bit old-fashioned for you?
No, I had a hi-fi many years ago. A hi-fi unit or a hi-fi system was a stereo system with two speakers, an amplifier, a turntable. Many of our younger listeners are probably already lost. A turntable that you put vinyl records on, and maybe a tape deck, and put all those together and you got a hi-fi, a high fidelity stereo system as a hi-fi.
Another word which you'll know, because it's become a Spanish word, is brunch. Although, like Wi-Fi, perhaps your pronunciation in Spanish is different. In English, the U is pronounced brunch, not brunch, but brunch. And as you all know, I'm sure, it's like a mixture of breakfast, and lunch, brunch. So it's a meal that's eaten after the normal breakfast time, but before the normal lunch time.
There's not a dinner, is there? Or a dunch?
No. There should be, shouldn't there?
Something you eat in the middle of the afternoon that's between lunch and dinner?
It should, because quite often over the summer holiday, I've been having what Craig has just invented as
Lunches.
really late lunch, because I've been having brunches. And then because my brunch was so late, like 11, 12 o'clock, I didn't eat next until about 5:30. So I guess in Spain that would be a dunch. We just invented that word.
Yeah, we've invented a portmanteau word, dunce. You'd call it in English a late lunch, wouldn't you? If you go on holiday, do you remember those, listeners? Do you remember holidays when we used to stay in hotels? Do you remember? Well, if you stay in a hotel and you take your car and there's a place outside your room to park your car, that's a motel. So motel, M-O-T-E-L, is a combination of motor and hotel, motel.
When we say the word motel in English, Craig, apart from the idea that it's designed to be for motorists. So you're driving along the motorway, particularly in America, people drive long distances and you might want to stop. Okay, you're a motorist. But apart from that, it has connotations of it's not going to be great quality, is it?
No.
Motel doesn't sound as good as hotel.
No, there'll be drugs next door and you'll hear gunshots during the night probably. And cockroaches on the floor, definitely. Yeah.
We're exaggerating a bit, but you get the idea. That's the kind of stereotype in films of motels.
I've stayed in motels like that.
And if you're really unlucky, some psycho dressed up as his mum will come and stab you in the shower. But
yeah, don't use the shower. Don't use the shower. Use wet wipes instead. If you enjoy shopping too much and you're always shopping and spending loads of money, you might be called a shopaholic. Now, you've heard of alcoholic, I'm sure, someone who drinks too much. Well, a shopaholic probably shops too much. Are there any similar portmanteau words to that with holic in it?
Well, I'm sitting beside a victim, a sufferer right now. I'm sitting beside
I'm not an alcoholic.
He's not an alcoholic, no. He's a chocoholic. Craig loves his chocolate. He eats a lot of chocolate, so he's a chocoholic. Craig, would you call yourself a workaholic?
No, I'd call myself lazy. So the opposite of someone who doesn't like working, the opposite of a lazy person, you could call them a workaholic because their life revolves around work. They're constantly working. They're workaholics. And if you're listening to this and you've listened to every episode and you're waiting every Sunday for the next podcast to be released, then we could call you an AIRCaholic. A-I-R-C. Aprender en inglés with Reza and Craig. Are you an alcoholic?
I must admit that I don't listen to every single episode when it comes out because I record them with you. So I try to listen to the final product entirely, but I must admit sometimes when it's my voice especially, I like to just fast forward and jump over it because I don't like listening to my own voice in the playback. What about you?
I like listening to your voice. I think you've got a lovely voice. I'm a Rezaholic.
He's the only one in the world.
We're recording this podcast in 2020 in September, and a few weeks ago there were some really, really bad fires in California. There were some fires in the Los Angeles area and the San Francisco area, and when the smoke from fire mixes with fog coming in from the sea, that causes something called smog, S-M-O-G, which is a combination of smoke and fog. And that was very common in London many years ago in the 1800s because they burned coal and there was lots of smoke from the chimneys in London houses and factories, and London was very smoggy. There was lots of smog in the air.
Our next word is a word that I'm sure many of you know, which is Spanglish. In fact, some of you might well be experts in it. Sometimes I slip into it myself.
Me too.
So obviously, Spanglish comes from the word Spanish and the word English. Mix them together and you get Spanglish. And that's exactly what it is. It's a hybrid. It's a mixture. It's a hybrid language which combines English and Spanish. I think it's probably spoken above all, most commonly in the United States, where a lot of people perhaps have a Latin American background. So maybe at home, their parents perhaps only speak Spanish or mostly Spanish, but they've been brought up in the USA, so outside they speak English. So they kind of end up, saying things like, hey, friend, welcome to my barrio, sort of thing. So the word barrio has like become an accepted part of their vocabulary. Yeah. Have you heard people speak Spanglish in the USA?
Yeah, very often in places like New York especially. And there's a very good film with Path Vega called Spanglish. So if you like Path Vega, if you're a fan, and I am, then why not Google Spanglish? It's a very good film. Joining France and England is a tunnel. And this tunnel goes under the English Channel. So because it's under the channel and it's a tunnel, it's called the chunnel, Chunnel. So the channel runs between the UK and France under the sea.
Another word which, of course, has become very important in the world of WhatsApp and social messaging in general is emoticon. But did you know it was a portmanteau word? In theory, I say in theory because sometimes I'm not sure. In theory, emoticons express emotion. So the first word is emotion, emo, and the second word is icon. So they're icons that express emotions, emoticon. So as you know, you click on the keyboard or your mobile phone and you get a facial expression. I've never quite understood what the smiley turd's all about, though. I've never been a fan of that.
That's my favourite emoticon. That's the one I use the most, yeah. What's your favourite emoticon?
The one I use the most anyway would be just that simple one of the kind of smile with the heart coming out and the kiss, that one.
You haven't sent me that one yet.
No, it's funny that.
You usually send me the one with the person laughing so much that they're crying.
Yes, that one, yeah.
You like that one, don't you?
But at least I haven't sent you a smiley turd yet.
Not yet.
The word turd, T-U-R-D, we're saying this word to avoid saying worse words.
Like shit.
Yes, because we don't want to be completely censored off iTunes and things like that. You know, the one which looks like human defecation with a face smiling on it. I've never actually sent that to anyone yet.
There are two words that refer to material, or tela in Spanish. One is nylon, Nylon, which you may not know is a portmanteau of NY for New York and LON for London. So this material is man-made and it was actually developed in those two cities. So they've combined New York and London, and that's where nylon comes from. And there's another one that refers to material, isn't there, Reza?
Yes, denim might surprise you that it comes from the words in French language, de, which means of in French, and the name of the town of Nîmes, Nimes, although the S, of course, is not pronounced in French, so Nîmes. So de Nîmes, that means from this place called Nîmes, from Nîmes. And you might think, well, what on earth could that have to do with denim? Denim is la tela vaquero. You say in Spanish vaquero, don't you? The cowboy material. But yes, the French, not the Americans, can you believe it, invented denim. It was a material developed in Nîmes. And because on the packages that were sent to the USA, it said on it de Nîmes.
From Nîmes, yeah.
From Nîmes, it ended up as, this is another one, de Nîmes, and somehow it ended up as denim. Let's call it denim.
I wonder if the American cowboys in Texas and Arizona realised that their denim jackets and denim jeans come from France.
I bet they don't, yeah. Strange, I thought, isn't it?
The Terminator and RoboCop are both cybernetic organisms. So their physical functioning has been made better and enhanced by mechanical elements. And the combination of cybernetic and organism gives us the word cyborg, C-Y-B-O-R-G. Who do you think would win, Reza, in a fight between the Terminator and RoboCop? Have you seen RoboCop?
Yeah, I think Terminator, pretty hard for anybody to beat Terminator. What do you reckon?
Yeah, maybe. But maybe it depends which Terminator we're talking about. I think the blonde girl, she was quite mean. I don't think Robocop would beat her. Or the guy that melted on the floor and changed his form.
He was Terminator 2, wasn't he?
He was Terminator 2. Maybe Terminator 1, Schwarzenegger, maybe Robocop. It would be an interesting fight, but later Terminators are more powerful, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, early Terminator might lose to Robocop, but later ones are probably going to beat him, we reckon. Now, and next word, if I say to you Oxford and Cambridge, you're thinking immediately, yep, 2 English towns and 2 universities. You can combine them and say Oxbridge. So instead of saying Oxford or Cambridge, you mix them and you get the portmanteau, Oxbridge. And it's a way of referring to both of them. So Oxbridge combines Oxford and Cambridge. So it refers to, if you've been to Oxbridge, that means you've studied in either Cambridge or Oxford, because the two are considered as more or less equally prestigious, the 2 best universities in the UK.
So you could be an Oxbridge graduate, for example, or have an Oxbridge accent, which is quite typically British, speak a bit like the Queen, maybe like the BBC, very received pronunciation. RP is an Oxbridge accent. Bollywood in India. Bollywood is the Indian film industry, which is actually bigger than Hollywood. They make more movies in Bombay than they do in Hollywood. But that combination of those 2 words, Bombay and Hollywood, gives us Bollywood.
Some of you may have heard of the word cosplay. It comes from costume, clothes that you wear, special clothes, costume, and play. So cosplay means dressing up in costumes that resemble characters from popular culture. For example, Batman characters or Marvel comic characters, something like that would be cosplay.
If you are a fan of cosplay, for example, and you read magazines based on cosplay, that combination of fan and magazine gives us the word fanzine. Fanzine, which is a magazine aimed at fans of a specific show.
The next word is an adjective, ginormous. You probably can identify there the derivation coming from enormous, and the gi is giant. So giant and enormous, they basically mean the same thing, but you can combine them for dramatic effect and get the portmanteau word ginormous, which is huge, very big.
For example, teachers earn a ginormous salary.
Oh, if only that were true.
Reza, would you consider yourself a metrosexual?
Not really. Not really. I'm not the opposite of one either, but I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm a metrosexual. So that's a metropolitan is one word, and the other word is heterosexual. I do consider myself heterosexual, and I guess I do live in the metropolitan area, but just those 2 facts in themselves are not enough to make you a metrosexual. It really means like a refined man from a metropolitan area, not from the countryside, who follows the latest fashion, beauty trends. He looks after himself. One look at a photo of me and you'll know I'm not a metrosexual.
So a metrosexual perhaps would wear the latest fashions, have the latest haircut, use very specific aftershave, maybe shave their body hair, for example. That could be a metrosexual.
What about you? Are you a metrosexual?
Definitely not. Definitely not me. No, I don't shave my chest hairs. So those are some of the more common portmanteau words that we've just discussed. Let's look at some less common words that you may hear, and these are again combinations of 2 words to make one separate word. If I said to you chillax, Reza, what do you think that means, and how would you be feeling if I said to you, hey, chillax?
For me, chillax is chill mixed with relax. So it means chill out or calm down, rest, relax.
Something we don't see very often these days, unfortunately, is netiquette, which is etiquette or correct behavior, responsible behavior on the internet. So if you're online and you're commenting on social media, you're giving YouTube comments or writing something on Twitter, it's a very good idea to have good netiquette, which is a little bit of an oxymoron these days. An oxymoron is something which goes against, two words that goes against each other, like an honest politician or a cheap Apple product, something like that.
Craig, what are your views on edutainment?
I think edutainment is a good idea, and that's what we try to do in this podcast. We try to give you some education about English and at the same time entertain you a little and make you laugh. So someone or something that's educating and entertaining you at the same time is edutainment.
Would you also say that our podcast strives towards infotainment?
I hope so, which is a very similar thing. It's giving information and entertaining you at the same time, trying to blend and mix information and entertainment together. So infotainment and edutainment is what we're trying to do here.
Craig, if I mix the word information with the word commercial, what portmanteau do I come up with?
Infomercial. So commercial is another word for advertisement or ad. So if there is an advertisement that has information inside it, then that's an infomercial, a television program or something online that promotes a product in an informative and hopefully objective way. Many years ago, when I went to school with sandwiches that my mum had prepared for me, she sometimes put in something between the bread that I hated, and it was spam, S-P-A-M, which is kind of like a spiced ham, and it's in a tin, and apparently it was invented during World War II to substitute fresh meat. Did you ever have spam as a kid?
No, luckily my parents didn't like it, so I wasn't forced to eat it.
You're very lucky.
Now, everybody probably knows the word spam. I'm sure you do, don't you, listeners? Because you get spam email. But that use of the word spam actually comes from a 1970s comedy show, Monty Python. They did a sketch about a restaurant where every single thing on the menu included the spiced ham, this horrible tin meat, which Craig has mentioned. So you couldn't eat anything that didn't have spam. So everywhere spam. You want chips, spam. Eggs, spam. Potatoes, spam. Anything you want, it came with spam. So this sketch was used to give us the idea of spam email. You know, everywhere you look, you got these stupid emails that you don't really want, but you've got them whether you like them or not. Spam email. But the original product is the portmanteau spiced ham. Spam.
If you're thinking of trying it, then don't. It's disgusting. Reza, how much do you think I weigh?
Well, I'm going to make a guesstimate. That you're about 80 kilos, 75.
Thank you for the compliment. I won't tell you if you're close or not, but I will tell you that what Reza did there was he kind of guessed and estimated my weight at the same time. So when you combine those two words, guess and estimate, you get the word guesstimate, a rough estimation.
Craig, if you're unlucky to suffer a carjack, what has happened to you?
Someone has pulled a gun or a weapon on you and tried to steal your car. And I can remember years ago I was visiting a good friend in Detroit, and he was driving and he drove us through the center of Detroit. And this was in the days when Detroit was a lot more dangerous than it is now. The center of Detroit is a lot safer now. But he stopped at some traffic lights and he left a big space, a big gap between his car and the car in front. And I said, why have you stopped so far back from the car in front? And he said, carjacking. Because if somebody came to steal his car with a gun, he could move out and continue driving. But if he was very close to the car in front, he could not maneuver his car. He could not escape. So he left a gap in case he was carjacked. And he said that's something he learned growing up in Detroit. 2 weeks ago, I went to the cinema for the first time in ages, and I saw a good film at a cineplex. What's a cineplex, Reza?
Well, that's a portmanteau of cinema and complex. So the word complex refers to, let's say, a building or an area made up of several buildings. So if it's a cineplex, there's not just one screen. There'll be several different rooms with several screens. A cinema complex or cineplex.
You've probably heard of the word database. Be careful of the pronunciation of data. Don't mispronounce it like Wi-Fi. Data, those words are pronounced differently in English. So a database is quite common. But if there is intellectual information inside the database that you call knowledge, you can combine the words knowledge and database to give you the word knowledge base. Knowledge base. Intellectual capital that's stored in a central area.
It wouldn't take you much then to deduce our next word, which is related, wisdom base. So instead of database, we take the word wisdom, which is sabiduría, and we mix that with database, wisdom base, a base of wisdom.
You can have a friend and you can have an enemy, but if there's a person who is supposed to be a friend, but maybe their actions are really more like an enemy, so you're confused if they're an enemy or a friend, you could call them a frenemy, F-R-E-N-E-M-Y, a combination of a friend and an enemy, a frenemy.
My favourite frenemy of all time from TV is Lieutenant Columbo. He always becomes the frenemy of the person who committed the crime. He knows right from the start. He has a hunch. He knows who did it, but by good investigative work, he finds out. But he's got a hunch. He pretends to be their friend. Oh, he tells them anecdotes. Oh, and I love your shirt, and aren't you marvelous? But he's plotting all the time to get them. And by the end, they kind of realize it, that, he's a frenemy. He's been working behind the scenes, pretending to be my friend, but he's caught me now.
You could use the expression to lead someone into a false sense of security. So they think you're their friend, but really they're trying to catch you. To lead someone into a false sense of security.
Craig, are you a fan of rom-coms?
It depends what mood I'm in. Yeah, sometimes I like to watch films like Notting Hill, Love Actually, Bridget Jones' Diary, for example. Those kind of films and TV series are rom-coms, which is romantic comedy. Are you a fan of that genre?
I have to say I'm not. I'm not a rom-com fan.
You're not a rom-com kind of person. We've got some more words for you, and let's test Reza and see if he knows what these portmanteau words come from and what they mean. And why don't you play this at home as well? See if you can guess which two words have been combined here to give this portmanteau word. The first one is bromance. Reza, what do you think a bromance is?
Yeah, I've heard that word several times. That is brother mixed with romance. So it's a close relationship between two men, but not a sexual relationship, not two gay men. They're not gay. They're just really, really good friends. They really have a special bond, almost like brothers, a bromance.
The next word is affluenza. Affluenza. Do you know that one?
Yep, I think I know that one. So it's mixing affluence. Affluence means being rich, with influenza, or you could say just flu.
Gripe.
Gripe, flu. The long version of the word flu, gripe, is influenza. So affluenza is the guilt of or lack of motivation experienced by people who've made or inherited large amounts of money.
Do you think you suffer from affluenza?
No, definitely not.
Me neither.
Definitely not.
A screenager. A screenager. Now, if you look at the two words that have been combined here, you might be able to guess this one. Any idea, Reza? Screenager?
I could easily guess the two words being mixed, screen and teenager, but you know what? I don't know what the word means. I don't think I've seen that one.
Well, it's the typical young child or adolescent who watches too much screen entertainment, so too much PlayStation, too many video games, too much time in front of Netflix is a screenager, that generation that watches the screen too much.
As you've just seen there, Craig knew that word. I didn't. It was a new word for me, although it's pretty obvious now where it comes from. Don't be surprised, because portmanteau words, they're being developed all the time. Maybe this word didn't exist half a year ago. So there are forever new portmanteau words appearing all the time. So you've got to keep your eyes open for all the latest developments.
So listeners might not know the next one, mansplaining. What's mansplaining, Reza?
Well, mansplaining is something that Craig could do with his sister or another woman, but he couldn't do it with me because it's a man mansplaining, something to a woman. But not in a normal way, ladies, but in this really irritating way, this really irritating, condescending, patronizing manner that we men can have sometimes when explaining things to women. ¿Me entiendes, cariño? No, I'm joking. So mansplaining is for men explaining to women in a patronizing way.
And it tends to be connected to subjects like technology or sport or mechanics or cars or something that men tend to be very familiar with, and they explain condescendingly to a woman. Reza, have you ever been glamping?
No, I have been camping, but never with glamour. So I know that that's what glamping means. Combining glamour while camping. I'm not sure how you would do that, actually. Have you done it yourself?
I have not done it, but I have seen it in action. Years ago, I was lucky enough to go to Tanzania and climb Kilimanjaro, or try to climb Kilimanjaro. We didn't get to the top. But on the way up, we saw people walking up Kilimanjaro and 6 or 7 porters, and the porters are the people you pay to carry your things. And not only were they carrying the bags of the tourists, they were carrying fold-up tables, fold-up chairs, candelabras.
You need a candelabra.
A candelabra.
Up Kilimanjaro?
For when they had dinner on Kilimanjaro, they could put candles on the table and really heavy things that were just not necessary. And they paid for these luxury items to be carried up this mountain so that they could live in more luxury while they were camping. And I just thought it was ridiculous, and I would not pay for that.
That's definitely glamping, all right. Unnecessary luxury there. Craig, what do you think nintendinitis means? I'll repeat that. Nintendinitis.
Nintendinitis. Well, the maybe Nintendo, which is a popular video game, and tendinitis, which is quite a painful aching of the bones and tendons that I sometimes get. So maybe nintendinitis is what happens when you play too many video games and your hand aches, your fingers ache, and you have pain.
That word I'd never seen before, I must admit, till a couple of days ago, but I immediately guessed its meaning. This can happen with portmanteau words, so you may not have seen them before, but it's pretty obvious it's something to do with tendinitis and Nintendo, so I guessed it pretty quick. It's like I've invented my own words in Spanish. A word I often use to refer to Coco is that he suffers, unfortunately, Coco's the dog, from guapitis.
From what?
Guapitis.
Guap like being
He's
too good
guapo.
looking.
Es demasiado guapo.
Guapitis.
So when I see him suffering, he's crying and stuff, I think, ay, pobre Coco, con el guapitis. He's demasiado guapo.
So he looked in the mirror and he can't stand his good looks.
Too guapo. Just too good looking.
That happens to me sometimes. You probably know what sandwich is, and I'm sure you do, Reza, but what's a manwich? manwich.
Ah, well, a manwich is not for ladies, is it? It's a man's sandwich. Now, obviously, that's a ridiculous idea, but the theory is that it would be the type of sandwich that a man, a tough guy, would go to the fridge and just get anything's in the fridge.
Anything that's in the fridge.
Anything will do, there's half a sausage, okay, was that a bit of fish from the other day, we'll put that together, mayonnaise, yeah, but there's not enough, let's mix that with some ketchup, that type of thing, see what you get. Not my cup of tea, but I know what it is.
Staying with food for a minute, there's the word vegetarian, I'm sure you know that word, vegetarian, but what's a flexitarian?
Yeah, I had heard that a few times before. It's a flexible vegetarian. So flexible, Aryan, vegetarian. In other words, it's a vegetarian who occasionally, sometimes eats meat. So they're not a strict vegetarian. They're a flexitarian.
And another portmanteau food word, frankenfood. Frankenfood. Now, Frankenstein was a monster, but Frankenfood doesn't mean food that scares you or food that suddenly becomes alive, although maybe it does, but Frankenfood is genetically modified food. Any food that has been genetically modified, you could call Frankenfood.
I guess it comes from the fact that Frankenstein was manufactured, wasn't he, from different body parts. He wasn't a natural creature.
Exactly. And now it's your turn to practice your English. We would love to hear from you. Why don't you send us a voice message and say hi, where you're from, and maybe give us an idea for a future episode. It will be really nice to hear from you. You can send your message via SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/Inglespodcast. Emails, Reza?
You can write to us. Craig will see your email if you write to craig@inglespodcast.com or write to me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
If you go to store.mansioningles.net, you'll see some courses on sale on the Mansion Ingles website. And if you want to follow the link for that, because maybe you're driving or you're doing exercise, then just go to inglespodcast.com/333 and look at the show notes from this episode.
And just before we go, as always, we'd like to thank all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast through Patreon. That's Patreon. The Patreon supporters are people who voluntarily give us as little as $1 a month plus VAT. I think it's about 20 cents or something like that, 21 cents. And for doing that, they receive audio transcriptions of all our latest episodes. We got quite a few of them, and it's a pity we haven't got time to mention everybody's name, but we do just have time to mention our most recent new sponsors.
They are Daniel Rodriguez Ruiz, thank you very much, Salvador Prieto Villanueva, David Navarro, thank you, Pedro Perez Garcia, Ziyi Fang, Pilar P, Mariano Perez, Maria Tambien, and Fernando de Avila. Thank you very much to all of you. Until next time, thank you very much for listening to us this week. We hope you got a lot out of this lesson on portmanteau words. Until next week, it's goodbye from Reza.
And it's bye-bye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.